So a few days ago, I tagged American Republican Kenny Shu in one of the posts made by one of his conservative white male friends, a very racist gentleman by the name of Paul, who says, and I quote, "Why are you so resentful of white male Asian female couples? Arr! Does it bother you that most of the hottest Asian women prefer white men?" And you know how Kenny's always ragging on about racism from the left, you know? How the left is apparently so racist and the right is so colorblind. So, since he expects right-wing white men to meet this colorblind ideal, I thought he was gonna call out Paul, for stepping out of line. But notice what Kenny says, and he was kind enough to reply, yeah, ha ha ha, I don't see a problem with white male Asian female, so long as Asian male white female is not also a problem. Alright, well, that's fine, but that's kind of like skirting the issue though. A man just said something racist about Asians. You're always ragging on about racism by blacks or racism by white woke social justice warriors. So why don't you want to confront Paul, a blatantly racist conservative white male man? White man, sorry, not white male man. What am I talking about? Yeah, who's obviously racist against Asians. Huh? Why don't you want to confront your friend, Kenny, your colorblind white male friend on the right end of the spectrum? Could it be you are afraid of rocking the boat? Are you afraid of losing your model minority status? You ever met these Asian Americans or African Americans, who say things like, "Don't call me Asian American or African American, mister. I'm American. I was born in this country. I'll die in this country. And I have no connection with whatever culture is, 3,000 miles away from me, Mr. Man." And these people often get super duper defensive when the question, "Where are you from?" is posed to them, Like, they kind of get super duper defensive and they get super duper pissed off when somebody asks that question of them, And okay, today I am going to talk to you about the failure of the melting pot. But first of all, please, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do me a favor. I'm doing this all for you, all for your sake, you see. So I despite the fact that I'm a super fucking busy person at the moment, I still make time to talk to you people, yeah. So the least you can do, if you're not subscribed, is to click the bloody subscribe button, please. Don't be a freeloader, yeah? Make sure you click the subscribe button before we start the video, yeah? Have you clicked it? Okay, good boy or good girl. Now let's start. Okay, yeah, so today I would like to talk to you about this particular creature. Well, no, creature is a little bit dehumanizing. Let's just call them particular humans in America who basically call themselves colorblind and basically, get very, 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 very annoyed, rather, when people still see them as people of color or Asian American or African American. They get very, very annoyed because they feel they have not truly assimilated, right? And the thing is, the idea that one can possibly assimilate into American culture, that anyone across the world could possibly just seamlessly assimilate into any culture for that matter, is just a myth, right? Because here's the thing. Americans like to believe that, if everyone will just adopt the American way of life and simply adopt the values of American customs, then all will be well. Because, apparently, basically the idea is that, everyone who comes to America must assimilate to the American way. But the question is, this begs the question, what is the American way? Is the American way the Irish way, the Native American way, the Chinese way, the African way? Because America is the most unlikely amalgamation of people ever to have come across one another. In all likelihood, in all frankness, America was never ever supposed to exist, right? It's kind of funny because people like Kenny Shu or Thomas Sowell, these far-right Republican people of color who say, all of you who come to America need to be like us. You need to adopt the American way or go home, our way of life. These people talk as if they were white, right? But the fact of the matter is that if the founding fathers like George Washington or Thomas Jefferson had had their way, fellas like Thomas Sowell, Candace Owens, and Kenny Shu would have been deported back to where they came from, right? So it's kind of ironic that they're now talking like the white man, like the protectionist white man, when initially the protectionist white man like George Washington or Thomas Jefferson did not even want them around in the first place. You see what I mean? But what is the American way? The thing is, Thomas Sowell, the famous African-American Republican scholar, once said that multiculturalism was like the caste system. Apparently that means, that a man's birth places you into the position in which you're born. And I think that's kind of a fallacy in a sense, because nobody is saying that you cannot be intercultural, right? Nobody is saying, for example, that you cannot adopt, if you're an African person, you can't adopt Chinese culture. Or if you're a white person, you can't adopt Middle Eastern culture. No. What Sowell is trying to say is that all other cultures suck and only Anglo-Western culture is the true culture that should be followed, and all other cultures are shit. Yeah, I've said it for you. Because you see, when Republicans rail on against multiculturalism, they're not railing on against all forms of multiculturalism, you see? You see? Like, they don't mind Italian culture. They don't mind Dutch culture. But most importantly, they want everybody to conform to the WASP culture, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture, in order to assimilate. When in fact, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants were migrants to America as well. They too were fresh off the boat, maybe 200 years before the Asians, and 100 years before the Africans were brought over in chains, but nevertheless, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants are still descendants of both people, you see. So for what right do they have to demand that other people of other cultures assimilate to their culture? You see, the idea that America is a melting pot where all races are equal and, if everybody just assimilates, everyone will be treated equally is a myth. Because here's the thing. If you, as a person of color, adopt the white man's culture, and you have no cultural literacy in your own culture, who is your superior and who is your inferior? I repeat that question. If you, as a an Americanized person of color who has no cultural literacy in the culture of your ancestors and have never bothered to try learning about the culture of your ancestors, just assimilate into the white man's culture, but you know the white man is not even assimilating into your ancestral culture. Who is the superior and who is the inferior? You see? So assimilation, in a sense, is really capitulation to the white man. The white man calls you a model minority for your proximity to whiteness, but he can never respect you as his equal, because at the end of the day, he is the teacher and you are the student. You are trying to assimilate into his culture and not him into yours. Therefore, assimilation is simply an act of capitulation, albeit in a more euphemistic manner. You see? Here's the thing. I don't care whether you're Asian American, African American, Native American, I don't care. But if you are culturally illiterate in the culture of your ancestors, I can tell you that the white man will never respect you as his equal, right? Now, if you were culturally literate in your own culture and you chose to embrace the culture of the white man, that is a different thing, you see, because you are doing it from a position of strength, right? You chose Anglo-Saxon culture, but you always have something to fall back on. You have another culture, another society to fall back on, right? It's just like the white man who comes to Asia and finds that Asian culture suits him better than whatever Western culture he came from. He is assimilating, but he's assimilating from a position of strength, you see, because if he ever finds that Asia gets too inhospitable or it's no longer to his liking, he has a place to go. He can go back to where he came from. While you, on the other hand, who are alienated from Asians in Asia, your own Asian culture, and have not made an attempt to try and reconnect with your roots, despite the fact that that's the bare minimum that you owe to your ancestors, right, are assimilating as a position of weakness. You have nowhere else to go, right? If, let's say, you fall foul of the white man. And please understand that I'm not talking about white man as in white people individually. I'm talking about the white supremacist power structure, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant supremacist power structure. As a person of color, you know, who is alienated from his own people, you are always second fiddle to the white man. That's why you see people sometimes saying things on Twitter, things like, well, of course, you know, Asian American women tend to go for white men because white men are the dominant race in America. They are the ones who created the culture. And they're not wrong about that fact, yeah. I mean, the modern American culture was created by white men. And the thing is, if they respected someone like Kenny Shu as their equal, right, would these people be saying things like this? I have literally seen on Super Mr. Assimilationist Kenny Shu's Twitter page, I saw a man literally with an Indonesian wife say openly that, you know, his wife would not ever date an Asian man because the culture is so backward, and so she will never ever date Asian men. See, even nice whites who don't explicitly insult you, right? Who don't explicitly insult you, if they say that my wife or my girlfriend will never date an Asian man, are they respecting you? Are they respecting you when they talk like that? Does Kenny Shu counter them? Does he fight back virulently against this Orientalism? No, he doesn't. He's extremely meek with white people, even though white people say shit like that about Asian men. But Guess what? When a black person oversteps his boundaries, or when an African American person says something Kenny Shu doesn't like, or does something Kenny Shu doesn't like, rah, he just pounces and goes all out, or when a harmless, meek social justice warrior does something, he will pounce. But if a white man with an Asian wife or an Asian girlfriend says something insulting about Asian men, Kenny Shu is crickets. He says nothing. He remains meek. He remains silent. In fact, he just says, "Okay, well, I'll just date white women then. You know what?" He just cops out rather than solves the problem of internalized colonialism in his own community. You see, do you know why? Because Kenny Shu is alienated from the people in his own native culture. And therefore, he is at the mercy of the white man. His position is not the same as a white expat in Asia who comes to Asia and tries to assimilate into Asian culture. Because even if he finds that it doesn't really suit him, he's in a position of strength because he's literate in his own culture. He's not alienated from the people in his own society. You see what I mean? Therefore, he always has a backup plan. You get it? If you rely on your Americanness, you POC who are super assimilationists and who don't want anything to do with your own culture, your own people in Asia or Africa or wherever, you are always at the white man's mercy, and he knows it. That is why whenever Asian Americans bring up their grievances about cultural appropriation or whatever, do you know what some racists in America say? They say like, "Oh, why don't we ask the Asians in Asia what they think?" Notice? I repeat, why don't we ask the Asians in Asia what they think? You know why? Because they see you as a phony representative of your own Asian culture, because you are alienated from your own Asian culture, you assimilated Asian American, but at the same time, what was I going to say? At the same time, he doesn't quite see you as a white man, because if he did, he would not disrespect you to that extent. Like, a lot of these racist white guys who come on my Twitter page assume that I'm an Asian American. They assume I'm an angry, disgruntled Asian American man when I bring up issues that affect the Asian community worldwide. Because what concerns the Asian community is not only, it's also my concern because I'm Asian, right? But they assume that I'm Asian, but as a matter of fact, I'm not. They assume I'm Asian American, but as a matter of fact, I'm Malaysian Chinese, right? And that's why you see that they will give you all kinds of disrespect that they would not give to somebody they knew was native Asian, right? Like they call me things like Asian incel, or angry, bitter Asian man because Asian women don't want you, even though I've had 4 girlfriends. Do you think they would ever talk with this kind of disrespect to a white man, to another white man, if a white man said the exact same things that you say? No, because at the end of the day, you are seen as an imposter, not a real white. And they feel they can abuse you and treat you with such extreme contempt and disrespect, because at the end of the day, blood is thicker than water, right? Now, if you were Italian or Irish or Scottish, you might not, you might be able to fully assimilate, right? You could just adopt white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture and nobody would ask you where you're from. But if you're Asian or African, it doesn't work, because your facial features are so distinctly different from a typical white man. And of course, that considering the rise of China and the yellow peril and the African American history of the civil rights movement, you are not quite viewed the same way by American society as assimilated Italians, Greeks, Irish, or Scottish. You're not. And I guess that's why some Americans have such an inferiority complex. Some Asian Americans have such an inferiority complex or such an insecurity that they go ape shit when people ask them, where are you from? Because in their heart, they know that they have not truly been accepted in white society. So some of these people, in order to gain acceptance, to not be seen as foreign, they may get white spouses. They may only go for white men, for example, or sometimes, I'm not only calling out Asian women, also Asian men. Some Asian men, like Kenny Shu, for example, may avoid Asian women like the plague if they want to assimilate, right? So then they end up losing their heritage. And at the end of the day, they have to trade in, or rather, in order to integrate, they have to go the extra mile that the whites don't have to. Like, they don't, if you're Italian American, you don't feel this kind of pressure as compared to if you're Asian or African American to try and assimilate, what was I going to say? Yeah. The point is, the melting pot model simply has not worked very well, right? It has not worked very well. Because at the end of the day, you have taken people from diametrically opposed cultures, put them all together, and expected them just to adopt a cookie cutter mold. And when everybody adopts this cookie cutter mold, you see people like Kenny Shu or Doug Kim being as white as possible, as westernized and Americanized as they possibly can be. They are still treated with disrespect, They are still subjected to the same Orientalist slurs that Asian American men are subjected to, like MR Asian, Asian incel, or patriarchal, abusive Asian man. They're not treated the same as a white man. I think Kevin Kreider actually talked about that, he said, I never wanted to be white. I just wanted to be treated like I was white, right? But the fact of the matter is that the white man will not treat you like a white. Do you know why? Because he doesn't respect you. And he doesn't respect you because you are alienated from your own culture. And I'm not putting you down as a person if you're alienated from your own culture, because this is the product of very, very unfortunate geopolitical circumstances. Very, very tragic geopolitical circumstances, right? That compelled your ancestors to leave for greener pastures. But at the same time, Malaysian Chinese, on the other hand, have really kept our Chinese culture quite intact, right? Because we did not assimilate. You see, we don't have this melting pot sort of thing that the Americans do. The Americans pretend that race doesn't exist and that, and everybody is colorblind, when in reality, everybody is not colorblind. And colorblindness is an impossible ideal to achieve. Whereas the Asians, like the Malaysians or the Singaporeans, let's not use the Malaysian model. Let's say the Singapore model, I think, is far more sensible than the American model. Lee Kuan Yew was wise enough not to try and sinicize the Malays or the Indians in Singapore. Instead, he made it compulsory for everybody to learn their own ancestral culture and learn their own ancestral language. I know Lee Kuan Yew was a reactionary, okay? He was a pretty terrible guy to Marxists, yeah? But the point is, let's give him credit when he's due, okay? Let's give Lee Kuan Yew some credit. He did the right thing. Because Singapore, race relations in Singapore are much better than race relations in America. In America, almost every week you hear of a stabbing or shooting or violent crime. Racial tensions are constantly abound, It's worse than in Malaysia, where I live. And Malaysia is supposed to be pretty bad. You will not hear of gangs of Chinese youths going around bashing up Malay elders, or gangs of Malay youths going around bashing up Chinese elders, because we are a lot more civilized than America. When you throw the people into the melting pot sort of environment and you stifle their culture, and I've always believed that it is natural for people to want to seek their own roots, right? when you stifle their culture and expect them to assimilate into the white man's Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture, the white man ends up, by default, becoming the superior and everybody else being the inferior because everybody else is assimilating into his culture. That's why the white man, please understand, I'm talking about it as a structure, not people here. The white man feels entitled to treat others with disrespect. Those who have assimilated, even those who have assimilated fully, with disrespect. Because at the end of the day, he thinks, well, you know, my culture is great, you've assimilated in my culture. And the same could be said if let's say Lee Kuan Yew had pushed the Indians and Malays to assimilate into Chinese culture. Of course, the Chinese in Singapore would treat the Indians and Malays with disrespect. Would you respect somebody who had no pride in his own roots and had no desire to learn about his own roots and basically do the bare minimum for his ancestors by getting in touch with his ancestral culture? Hell no, you wouldn't, right? I'm not saying this to vindicate the racist white guys who attack you or, you know, who say nasty things about you if you're an Asian man. I'm just saying, would you respect somebody who is trying to be just like you, who treats you as if your culture were his, who treats you as the role model to emulate and basically looks down on his own culture? Because let me tell you, every time you say like, I'm as American as you are, you know, don't ask me where I'm from, I'm American. You are arguing from a position of weakness. You are speaking from a position of weakness because at the end of the day, you are basically fighting for your own existential survival in America. The white man doesn't, if somebody asks the white man where he's from, he's not going to feel so threatened and so insecure because the white man is literate in his own culture. He's among his own people. And he feels he's right at home, right? And the thing is, you on the other hand, you get so defensive and so butthurt when people ask you where you're from, or basically when people call you Asian American and treat you not like a white person, because at the end of the day, you know that you have not truly assimilated and you're still viewed as a foreigner, an outsider. You know, blood is thicker than water. You know, at the end of the day, being an Asian man in Asia is like being a white guy in America. And that's why it's very difficult for those racist yellow fever guys to bully me. They can throw in any type of Orientalist insult that they normally throw towards Asian American men, like Asian incel or MR Asian. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Asian women love Asian men. I'm not an American, dumbass. You see, so the thing is, they can't bully me, they can't make me feel small, and I can show my face quite confidently. I don't care what they say about me because I'm among my people, you see. I have said before, time and again, being an Asian man in Asia is like being a white guy in America, right? So you can't really bully me. You can't bully a white guy in America or Australia, right? So here's the thing. As long as you constantly refuse to learn about your culture and traditions, and you put the white man's culture and traditions and language on a pedestal, he will always look down on you. He will always look down on you, and it is to be expected if you put him on a pedestal, right? He will only treat you as well as you treat him yourself. You ever wonder why they say, why don't we ask the Asians in Asia what they think whenever Asian Americans bring up their concern? Why is that? Because Asian Americans do not treat themselves with respect. Just like some African Americans do not treat themselves with respect. They don't go and discover their ancestral roots. And it's a lot easier if you're Asian American to discover your ancestral roots than if you're African American. Yeah, you came from vastly different places in Africa, and it's not going to be easy finding your roots. You, on the other hand, as an Asian American, have no excuse because You probably still have living relatives in whatever Asian country you came from. You know, you probably still know roughly which region of China or Korea or Vietnam or whatever you came from. Your African American friends don't have that luxury. They have their work cut out for them. You don't. So what I'm trying to say is that assimilation into American culture is really capitulation to the white man. You are basically capitulating to him and living on his terms, right? And as long as you have no connection to the people in your motherland, as long as the white man knows, again, I'm saying for the fifth time, because I don't want people to get confused, I'm referring to the white man in the same way Malcolm X is referring to the white man, as a power structure, not a person, yeah? If the white man knows that you have nowhere to go and you depend on his good graces, he will treat you like shit. Because you will be like shit to him, right? The only way for the white man to treat you better is for you to treat yourself better first. Take pride in your native culture. Take pride in the achievements of your ancestors. Don't act as if you're just another protectionist white man who says like, embrace our American way of life. Be American when you come here, because no matter how hard you try, the white man is not going to see you as white, okay? He's not. I'm sweating. Sorry. I need a minute to just pause for a while. As I've said, the white expat who comes to Asia and assimilates into our culture is doing so from a position of strength. If he ever finds that Asia is not hospitable to him, or he doesn't like it anymore, he can always go back to the West. He's not alienated from his own people and his own culture. You, on the other hand, no matter how badly the white man treats you, if you are alienated from the people in Asia, you're alienated from your own culture and people. This gives him ammunition to treat you however the fuck he likes, right? You see what I mean? So he can say like, well, if you're not happy here, go back where you came from. You can get enraged at it, but at the end of the day, he knows that you're not going to go back where you came from, because he knows that you are alienated from your own ancestral lands, and America is the only place you've got, right? So please, let's cut this assimilation melting pot bullshit. You are not a white man and never shall be. Take pride in your ancestors, and at least the very least you can do for your ancestors is to actually find out about your roots. Okay? Thank you.